topic number one. First of all, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Chris, it's my honor to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Are you really only drinking water right now?
Well, really good water. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I want to ask you about that too, but yes, tell me about this water fast or whatever you want to call it.
Sure. So, last, I guess 3 days ago, my thumb really started to hurt, like joints started to hurt. My shoulder's an absolute train wreck already, Chris. Okay. So like my joints started to hurt and a lot of congestion. And I had been somewhat reckless with my diet. So I'd been to McDonald's a couple times in the week, and I ate at Chick-fil-A. I ate a pizza from a delivery place. So I had like a lot of processed foods and nitrate stuff raging through my body. And so sometimes I'll do like a 2-day fast, but I'm doing a 4-day and I'm almost done. I have another day to go, but I drink, like really good mineral water. And I've tried some new ones. Some of them are a little bit harder to stomach than the others. I think this New Zealand 1907 water has been an absolute find, and I love it. It's awesome. It's wonderful. The water I'm drinking currently is called Vichy Catalan, which is very minerally water. It's not for everyone. And my favorite water is Gerolsteiner, which I've treated myself with buying a lot of these good waters. And so I'll drink like 20 ounces of water, like close to a gallon. Wow. But other times, you can, like some people will do like the Phil Mickelson coffee for snake oil, whatever he calls it, right? Yeah. And, so you start with coffee, then you put this powder in, then you put some fat in, then you put some butter in, then you put some cinnamon in, and you put all this stuff in. Well, the second you consume that, you're not really fasting.
Right.
So, for me, like I've done a 7-day water fast.
Oh man.
I've done 4. This will be 4. And I've done probably 2 or 3 7-dayers with like coffee, but this is just water. There's like no coffee.
Do you usually drink coffee?
Daily. Yeah.
So not only are you like just drinking water, but then you're cutting off your caffeine supply as well. So have you had hallucinations during this process? Or like your body has to kind of go into a bit of a shock early on when you do it.
Well, I think what happens is you will start to, you'll hear your hormones a lot more clearly when you're fasting. So if you understand, like you're not really hungry. It's just you have this hormone called ghrelin, right? And these leptins, and like they're charging through your body and they're telling you like, hey, we're missing something, right?
Yeah.
And your body's really not missing anything. It's just, it's going to go source it somewhere else. Right. So, no, like I would tell you this, the first day of a 4-day fast, you're kind of psyched about it. You're excited because you know how you're going to come out of it and you're going to feel great. So you're okay with that. Yeah. The second day is normally the day where you get in some kind of a spiral or funk. And so yesterday, I raised my voice a few times when I shouldn't have. You just get, there's like this pocket, right, of time, and it's maybe 6 hours, and like you shouldn't be around a lot of people. And
right.
Then, but like, if you have good water and you just like have something to take your mind off some, things like whether it's a puzzle or a video game or YouTube, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of mind over matter through that one stretch. And then when you get through that stretch, then it's a cakewalk. So right now I'm on like a high. I feel great right now.
And do you really? Yeah.
I feel very content. I feel very nimble. I feel like uh, I feel aggressive. I feel good. I feel really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're going through this, just so if anyone else wants to try it, you're you are kind of a water connoisseur. So you know what kind of good, it's not tap water you're going to live off of for 4 days. You're talking about some stuff that has some value to it.
I mean, if I was in Denver, Colorado, I would probably be cool with. Denver has great water.
Okay.
Like there's some cities that have really
That's
good water.
I didn't know that.
Santa
Okay.
Monica is not one of them. But yeah, no, I like the mineral water because our body needs those things. And
Yeah.
I think if we're feeding it like for example, like people think they should drink milk to get calcium. Cows don't drink milk to get calcium, Chris.
Right. Right. It's true.
So that's
It's
a
true.
complete lie, right? Like I
Yeah.
think the more you inform yourself about what our body really does with the nutrients and the minerals we intake, all the better. I'm certainly not someone that people should listen to for this advice. I do work in
Fair.
healthcare and I do like a little bit of biohacking on the side, but um, I think, like Dr. Jason Fung, who is a Canadian physician whose primary focus is longevity, right?
Okay.
Is to me probably the foremost expert on fasting and the principles of water fast versus intermittent fast versus, the drink a coffee in the morning with a billion calories in it fast. Like there's
Yeah.
different kinds. I like really good water. And I think that, you know, it's a great way to treat yourself. And you can find so much delight in a $4 bottle of mineral water. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And people should look into it more.
Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I'm on I've got it on my whiteboard up here, day 20 of my alcohol fast. So I'm drying out for January.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's I feel the same thing. I think there was a time I tried to do something. It was video related, something I've done 100 times, and it takes a half hour, let's say.
Yeah.
It was taking me 10 minutes, and I can't. I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. And I just kind of walked away from it for no reason. I'm sure that was because that rut that you kind of talked about was kicking in after like whatever it was, 15 days or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I could sort of relate. I don't think it's not nearly as like I'm still eating, but yeah, I've had so much. You talk about having so much water. Like I can't imagine going. I'm that's all I'm drinking. It's coffee and water, coffee and water, coffee and water, because there's really nothing else in my life. Like,
what kind of water do you drink?
so it's like basically refrigerated filtered water.
Yeah.
So it's Chicago water for the most part, but then I've got one of those like bubbly water machine makers.
Yeah, SodaStream. Yeah.
Yeah, SodaStream. I've got a SodaStream. So I throw some, sugar flavor something in there, and that helps me drink water, because I'm a horrible water drinker. I've told myself so many times, like, dude, you got to drink more water, because I just don't do it. My wife tells me probably every day, because she's a wateraholic. But yeah, that's basically what I've been living off of is some sort of flavored bubbly water.
Yeah. Can I draw like a golf analogy? May I? So like
Sure.
tap
Absolutely.
water, like I don't think you would go to a golf course and use like a striped range ball, right? Like tap water is like going out and playing golf with a range ball, right? And then like Perrier is like a pinnacle, right? Like,
really? Okay.
Yeah. Then if you go up the ladder a little bit more, like LaCroix is the pinnacle, actually. And then Perrier is maybe the Kirkland, right? And then then you get up to the tour quality balls, and you have like you know what I'm saying? Like if
this analogy is selling me now, because now I really do want to go out and get some tour level golf ball water.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm into it. I understand.
Yeah. Do you live near like a Erewhon or a Whole Foods or a
Yeah,
co-op?
I can walk over to a Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, check your co-op if you have a local co-op, because
Okay.
co-ops carry wonderful water.
All right.
And there's a guy who told me, he's like, the dirtier tasting the water, the better. Right?
Really?
That's the mineral,
That makes
right?
sense. Yeah, that's
So
the mineral. Sure.
when you look at spring or a mineral water, it comes from the earth, right? And if it has some flavor to it, then those properties are there and they're good. But I'm certainly not a water sommelier or an expert. I'm just a guy who bought like water from, and I'm not even exaggerating, I bought water from Georgia, the country. I bought water from New Zealand this week, from like republics I never knew existed. Have some
Right.
really great water. Some of the, listen, some of the Balkan countries have great water. But
Man, I
yeah,
had no idea.
my favorite is Gerald Steiner, and I think if you start with like a Pellegrino Gerald Steiner 1-2, like you may not leave, because those are excellent waters and they're very good for you.
All right. I'm in, man. I'm going to give it a shot. You've convinced me. You've convinced me. I don't want to drink a range ball or a Pinnacle. That's nonsense.
Yeah, that's what you're drinking. Yeah, exactly.
I'm better than that.
Exactly. Right.
All right. That's not why you're here, although that was an amazing conversation. But now I think people can understand. You're not to keep on with the river analogies, but I feel like your waters run deep, man. Like you kind of have a ton of knowledge about a lot of stuff. Your Twitter threads are prolific.
Oh, thanks.
First of all, I mean, that was one of the reasons that I just wanted to be friends with you. Like this dude is amazing with that stuff. Like, and it's great because they're mostly random.
Yeah, life's mostly random, Chris. So that's kind of
it's true. It's true.
I'm largely on what people call golf Twitter. Do you know what I mean? Right?
Yep.
I'm not on, thank God, I'm not on Tesla Twitter. I'm not on finance Twitter. I'm not on the other Twitters that are big, right? But golf Twitter's, kind of fun, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think really interesting people there that I've gotten to meet over time. I've enjoyed your stuff. I've enjoyed listening to some of your podcasts, and I think we know some of the same people that we both find interesting, like Jay Revel, right? Like wonderful mind. So yeah, it's fun to have that anchor that is golf, but my mind just kind of goes a lot of different directions, and I'm a bit of an autodidact in that, like, I may not know anything about, say, I don't know, early Franciscan monks, and like 4 books later, I feel like I know quite a bit about it, and then here we go, right?
Yeah.
I think to me, social media is a great way to learn from others. And I find that when I make these threads that are kind of ranging from like, was Alexander the Great overrated, to is Northland Country Club the best course in Minnesota, to weird times I had with Rod Carew, to like all these things, like people pop up and they're like, oh, I was Rod Carew's neighbor. And like, it's just funny. It's funny what comes out of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good kind of segue into something that I certainly wanted to talk to you about, and that was Life in the Front Row, your Bill Kenneman story, which was one of the most insane. So I'm going to tell you something first, and I think people that have listened to this show know that I'm a genuine human being. I don't just say things to say them, but I received my very first The Golfer's Journal edition in the mail. And the reason that I became a subscriber was because of the fact that you wrote something in it. And that is 100% true. And you did not disappoint with this story.
Thank you.
So just go. And this was a Twitter born story.
Totally.
About the count.
Yes. Yes. So one of the, Bill the Count Kahneman. And okay, so I grew up in Minneapolis and suburban Minneapolis, and I went to Gustavus Adolphus College, and I was in a fraternity there that kind of everyone on the football team was on this fraternity. And a guy who had graduated the year before I got there had kind of given me his sweater, and it's kind of become a lifelong friend.
Mm-hmm.
And his name is Scott Anderson. And so like I get an email from Scott, and like this is at the beginning of quarantine, like shelter in place. So like I am deep down like several rabbit holes. But when Scott says like, hey, you've got to check this out, especially if it's pertaining to golf, then it's kind of a drop everything and check it out, because Scott's like a savant when it comes, like literally a savant. And if anyone were to paint me with the interesting brush, I would hate to know what they think about Scott, because he is like
Right.
multiples of knowledge beyond me. So Scott sends me an email like with a screen grab, and it's like, who the hell is this guy? And so we kind of start like, I mean, look, you know, I'm in my late 40s. Scott's a little older than me, like, and we've been around a little bit. So like, it's not that hard to figure out who people are, especially in the golf world. Both of us were stumped. We went to the expert of experts, Bama Bearcat, Michael Wolf, right? And like, we're all kind of stumped. And so then we just take it to Twitter, like, check this guy out. He's here in 1982. He's here in 83. He's here in 84. And like, suddenly, like people start, hey, it's Bill Walton. Because he's like this massive,
he's huge, tall. Yeah. He's like 6'6". He's got the big blonde hair and the whole thing. Yeah. And he keeps showing up in the background of the Masters tournaments.
Right.
Yeah.
But with purpose.
Right.
Like he's got like this regal presence. And you kind of get the feeling maybe people made space for this man to stand right where he's standing.
Right.
So sure enough, some guy, right, Catholic golfer, God bless him, was like, I know who that is. That's the Count. And I'm like, okay, who's the, you know.
Right. And that's just so that's not even close to being the end of the story. That's just like the tip of the right.
That's the beginning. Then like suddenly, because this guy knows the Count's son, like Ferris Golf, like all these, like, I hate talking about people on their Twitter handles, but these are their Twitter handles. And like all these people start pouring in like, yeah, he's got the biggest house in Illinois, like all these like stories. And I'm like, what? Who is this guy? Right. So then then like the gold medal happens. Hi, Laz. I was the Count's best friend from 1978 to 1988, and I can tell you anything you want to know. Then his daughter, then his son, then it's on. Right now, like people are. I've always kept my DMs open on Twitter, and I am telling you, Chris, I had probably 50 DMs of people like, I don't know the guy, but I can tell you that we used to pass the hat at our golf club, and like, you know, if the poker chip was in front of your beer when he came on the set, you had to buy the round for the whole bar.
Right.
But it was crazy because, you know, golf clearly was a way for, without ruining the story for those who have yet to subscribe or support the Golfer's Journal or read the story in digital form or actually get the quarterly in hand because it's such a beautiful book.
It's
staggering how nice. It's staggering.
It really is. Really is.
I guess I would say that the Count was someone who found in golf a vehicle to share his love for people, for relationship, for life, for competition, for vanity in certain ways, and to somehow share that with everyone. And I will say that my favorite part of investigating him was when his son, Brad, is just, it's strange to call these people and say like, yeah, I'm on Twitter and I'm going to write a story about your dad.
Right.
Oh, really? Do you work for the New York Times? No, I work in healthcare, but I'm going to write a story about your dad.
Right.
Give me all the details of his life, right? So like, it's interesting to approach people like that, but I think Brad felt that we were, and the reason I say we is because like this story and a lot of the other stuff that I work on isn't just me. It's kind of Scott and Bama Bearcat, Michael Wolf, he's Jim Herman's agent. He's brilliant. Like he's read more golf books than anyone. But a lot of times we kind of collaborate on a thread of text, and then those ideas become stories. And this is kind of what this is.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So it's not just me really that put that together. It's kind of the ideas of Scott and Wolf and like kind of giving life to that. But
yeah,
to reach out to Brad Kinnaman and find out that he's in Naples, Florida, which Scott goes to Naples a lot. I used to go to Naples a lot. You're from Chicago. You probably have been in Naples 15 times.
Sure.
And to know that dude ate burgers where I eat burgers, I was like, we're going to be fine. We're going to be absolutely fine because he's got great taste in food.
That's right.
So I have to tell you, like, to hear people talk about how much they loved him was really, really fun to share with people. And I hope that came across. But
yeah,
kind of digressing, like, it's just to get a chance to talk to his son. And at the end of the conversation, he says, well, you can just call my sister and she'll tell you all about the movie. And I was like,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I know. That's how that story, like, you guys did a great job sort of unfolding things and kind of, and really laying things out in a way where every time I feel like I read a sentence, I couldn't wait to read the next sentence because it was just this anticipation of like this guy. It was every time you'd keep reading the story, it just got just more and more incredible. And this story was so great. So great.
This summer coming up. So, they hold a tournament every year in his honor.
That's right. That's right.
And so we're going to do some kind of a follow-up. And I don't know if we're going to video it or what we're going to do, but
that's such a great idea.
I just feel like it has to go full circle and we have to go play in Chester, Illinois,
That's right.
at the Kent Classic. And, I think, this growing up in Illinois, or living in Chicagoland area.
Sure.
And moving out here to Los Angeles, specifically Santa Monica. And when people who live out here say things like, oh, you come from Minnesota, like, do you guys have golf courses out there?
Right.
And I just want to just cut their Achilles,
Right. Right.
And what people don't know is all throughout like rural Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, there's these wonderful courses, and many of them are 9-hole courses, and like if you like camping, it's a great way to car camp and like play 18 holes and car camp again and play 18 holes the next day again. So that's one of those courses in, rural Illinois that, God willing, I'll be there,
That's awesome.
Honoring the count.
Yeah. I can't even imagine what that must have been like as data was flooding in on you from this sort of simple Twitter kind of idea.
Yeah.
That had to just been like, holy cow, man. Like, this is crazy.
Well, I immediately knew there was something there, right? Like I knew there was something there, and I'm, I can't stress this enough, but like Travis Hill, who's the editor of the Golfers Journal, is so intelligent, so brave, has such a tremendous eye, and has a great touch to work with people. who maybe don't do this for a living
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah.
But I think he saw that, yes, like I went to Travis in the thread early and said, like, Travis, I think there's a story here. And I knew Travis because I wrote a piece about the last duel that happened in the last legal duel that happened in the United States happened on a site where now there is the seventh hole at San Francisco Golf Club.
Oh, wow.
And so
Okay.
that's in Golfers Journal 3. And so I knew Travis and had submitted some really horrible ideas about stories to him and others that we're working on still to this day.
Yeah.
But I mean, Chris, to know that there's a publication that is done at the highest level of quality, that is not hastily put out, that is not about keyword search, that is not about clicks, but it's about crafting stories that people enjoy reading. And when non-golfers read that story and tell me, like, I don't even play golf, and my God, that was a lot of fun. It's just really touching.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen without the bravery of someone to launch a print publication like Golfers Journal or Thomas Dunn's McKellar magazine, where, like, I honestly think, the very first McKellar magazine, where Jeff Shackelford writes Masterpiece Theater, and Anthony, I say his name wrong all the time and I don't know him, but Piapi or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. An incredible story about the Tillinghast Papers. It's just, like, you're not going to, God bless Golf Magazine and Golf Digest, but I don't care where the 10 best places to play in Hilton Head are. I don't care.
And that's what was that
Jimbo does on the off season. I really don't care about 90% of the schlock that you get in those magazines because, the keen observer would look back on the decades of golf magazines and Golf Digest that keep promising you 5 extra yards if you do this one tip, 10 extra yards if you do this exercise and you'll be 1 club longer. I mean, if any of that was true, which none of it is, people would be hitting golf 700 yards. So, So those magazines are largely, they're commercials, right? Like they're ads to sell stuff, and good, because there's people that need that work and there's people that need to do that. And I'm glad that, there's some essays that are, Golf Digest is way better now than it was 2 years ago. Way better. Golf Magazine, is, if you have Alan Shipnuck and Michael Bamberger, you're going to do really well. You're going to have
you're doing all right.
Great stories. Yep. And I think, like Josh Burrow has made some great pieces as well that have touched me. And, but they're there to do a certain something for certain customers. And it's not necessarily the reader all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Keller and Golfers Journal, I'll just say it's a little bit higher plane of engagement with the reader. And I want to be a part of that kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that, Travis took a chance and that Brendan and Mark and, everyone at that publication is just, great to work with.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Casey too. Casey's fun.
The things you point out about the other publications is the reason I never subscribed to the Golfers Journal, and what a huge mistake on my part. I mean, once you have that thing in your hand, you get it. You immediately get it. Understand the whole thing, and it's not it's just like this, like you were saying, it's such a perfectly built, collection of stories and photographs and that whole kind of thing, that it's not a culture thing. It's just golf storytelling, and it's wonderful. It's just so great.
Yeah. There's a lot of humanity in it. I mean, there's a few things I'll point out that, I'm looking out the window right now. I see blue skies. I see green. I see different hues, right? Because that's how my human eye works. Mm-hmm. But when you look through the ultraviolet and you see light differently, the world changes, And so there's a piece in the Golfers Journal about looking at Augusta National through ultraviolet light, which is unreal. And so, I have friends that came over before things got wonky with, having guests in the house with COVID, and they would just kind of sit and look through the magazine that didn't golf. And I think that's the great compliment, is like, people that don't golf don't put it down.
Seriously. Yeah.
They don't put it down,
That's really true.
And like, it's kind of free.
Basically,
like blow it, like,
I know,
like $100 to go blow it Linksoul. It's like, okay, sure, I'll do it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really true too. And I just actually got an email from them, like, your order is shipping. And I'm like, I didn't buy anything, but they're just sending me stuff. They're just going to send me stuff. Like, okay.
I try to be a minimalist, but it's like, oh my God, look at this head cover. This is great. Oh, look at a yardage book.
Yeah, exactly.
What am I don't keep score. Somebody else does. What am I going to do? Like, it's fun.
Know.
Yeah, it's
true. Yeah. So anyways, everyone's got to go read that thing. I mean, between your story that you wrote in there and the Tom Coyne story that's in there, I mean, that's worth every dime.
I cried. Yeah. And there's, like, to point out some back issues, like, so Jay Revel's piece on Tobacco Road and the building of Tobacco Road is pretty fun.
Yeah.
There's a piece called Nashville that will make you cry if you're human. And there's just a lot, there's a lot. I think it gives voice to anything too, right? Like, there's some comedy, there's some chaos, there's some, it's great. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other piece I wanted to talk to you about, which is actually when I sort of like met you on Twitter or whatever it was the golf.com piece. And I think you wrote that. Did you write that last summer?
Well, yeah. So that was all credit to Alan Shipnuck for making that happen, frankly. So, there's this kind of, we're in this moment, what people call a racial reckoning, right? And so George Floyd is murdered by police about 6 miles from where I grew up.
Yeah.
And it was, in a lot of ways, Chris, kind of the last straw. And I don't know when we'll get there with other things that we should be at the last straw, but we're not quite there yet. But in this case, it was the last straw for a lot of people. And I remember hearing a lot of talk about, like, golf's got to be better about this. And like, I have so I've never face to face met Alan Shipnuck, right? But we know we have our circles intersect at a few different spots. And so I've had this kind of relationship with him, just direct messages back and forth on Twitter. And like, even back in the Sports Illustrated days, I think I sent him an email a long time ago, but at any rate, there were some pieces that were getting put out on like Golf Digest and like just kind of all over the golf media world. And they were so bad. They missed the point horribly, right? If your reaction to the disease of race in our country is, you should invite a black person to play golf once. Or give a black kid some clubs. Like, race is a lot like an optical illusion. So for a lot of people, they don't see it. They simply cannot see it. So this is not to disparage people who, like, there's a piece in Golf Digest about, here's some things you can do to make golf better. You can invite one of your black friends to play, right? Like, oh, okay. Give black kids some clubs, and like all these kind of like very shallow efforts. Yeah. And so I was like saying to Alan, like, and I was supportive of Alan's work. Whenever I read something that I really liked, I would drop him a note and say, to me, you're the best in the business. But other times I would say, like, do you remember when you sent that tweet that said golf.com is going to be way better in the coming months? Well, it's not, Alan. It's actually worse. And I feel offended that you tell me a must-have item is this $800 shoe bag made of leather. Yeah, that's not a must-have item.
Right.
And this is what your publication is telling me. So he's always been great to receive the criticism and give any reason or cause, right, as to like, well, this is what we're actually doing, Laz, and thanks for enjoying the website,
Right.
So I told him, like, Alan, I think everyone in golf is like missing the mark here. And he's like, well, what do you got? And I sat down for a couple hours and I sent him this essay. And he liked it, and I was like, golf.com's never going to run this. They're never going to run a piece that addresses slavery, that addresses oppression. They're never going to run this. So I'm lucky to count, Tron Carter and DJ Pyhowski as friends, and I was like, DJ, Tron, read this. And DJ, called me and he's like, dude, we'll run this like now. We will run it right now.
Really?
And I remember feeling horrible because I can legitimately tell you, like, I love being around them, and DJ's like an inspiration to me. Like, I've read some of his stuff and thought, I want to do this kind of stuff too, Yeah. And I just felt like that essay. So I go back to, Bama Bearcat and Scott Anderson, right? The two guys that bounce everything off of. And I'm like, what do you guys think? And Scott's like, you should call the New York Times or the New Yorker. But this is not, we can't go small with this. Like, we have to get it in the biggest place we can get it.
Yeah.
So
this was not a blog.
Yeah. This is not like, like a lot of people need to see this. So Alan Shipnuck made that happen, right? Like he fought the fight with, Josh and Alan Bastable at golf.com, and they made it happen. They ran it, and like to this day, I still get like 2 or 3 DMs a week from people who will say, hey, I read this and it really moved me. And so it hurt to write it in a way, it hurt to be like, I can't believe people can't see what the root cause of all of this is and are afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
Slavery. But like, if you can change a mind a day, like, you're doing great. And I think it's changed some minds,
Absolutely. And it's the pin tweet on your Twitter handle, right? So anyone can get to it. They go to your I remember, so I kind of have I guess it's a small confession maybe, but so you start that essay off as you're at a country club and you're being asked some general
in Naples, Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. You're being asked some questions that I wouldn't be asked if I were there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But they're not questions though, Chris.
Right.
Like,
That's true. They're accusations with a question mark on the end of them.
Like, can I help you? That is not a question. Right. That is what the heck are you doing here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's true. And the kind of picture you paint is, and this is what really kind of struck me, and I hadn't thought about it, and I don't know why I should have. You're in the shop, and someone finds an excuse to fold some shirts, to adjust some hangers, to do some things in your vicinity, right?
Yeah.
As a 16-year-old kid, I worked at a retail store, and I was trained basically to do that.
Yeah, sure.
And I never thought twice about it until I read your piece, and I was like, oh my God, like me, the simpleton, teenage kid. And that's not an excuse. I shouldn't know that. And it just kind of, I don't know, it filled me with all sorts of emotion and anger. And I was angry at this, this, whatever he was, early 30s white guy that taught me that unknowingly to
Yeah.
basically profile. And I was just, you
But
have
it's not
this.
just that 30-year-old guy teaching you, right? Like literally not every, but like from a societal perspective, what color hat does the bad cowboy wear?
Wears a black hat.
Right.
Yeah.
What color hat does the good cowboy wear?
Yeah. He wears a white one.
White hat. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so the conditioning is so far beyond just like that, you
Yeah.
know,
You're
like
right.
it's not just the United States. Like if you have friends from India, they will tell you very similar things about how the lighter your skin is in India, the more likely you will rise in society, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So these lies and these, you know, figments of truth that we throw in people's heads about the dark is bad, right? And
Yeah.
but I think there's a book called Between the World and Me, which is a really great, necessary book, especially for kids. I say his name wrong, but it's Ta-Nehisi Coates, who
Oh yeah. Okay.
was Atlantic, right? And so I think he wrote something that stuck with me at a level that spoke to so many feelings that I had when I would walk into a Nordstrom or a Dayton's or a you know, if I go into Barney's or if I go into a Target. But like, if you're black, you're always on parole.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're, it doesn't matter if you're mixed, biracial, if you're at all black in this country, you are
Yeah.
always on parole.
Yeah.
You walk in any retail establishment, and newsflash, everyone that works there knows you're there. Everyone that works there knows you're there, and they have an eye on you at some level, right? And so it's not pro shops, but yeah, like it's where you worked, it's record shops, it's everywhere. It's just that's how it goes. That's how it goes, and that's a burden. And there's you know, there's a lot of stress with that too. That, you know, I watched the Tiger documentary and like, here he is, this child telling Oprah, like at 20, Tiger's still essentially a child, right?
Right.
And he's created this race that he is now. And like, you know, but the truth is, Tiger, you're black. And like you walk in anywhere, Tiger, and you're black. And if you would have been born in 1860, Tiger, you'd be a slave. You wouldn't be, whoa, hold on. This guy's a mix of 6 things. No, he's a slave too. Put him over here with the other ones. Measure his teeth too, right? So, yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, I feel like even to call it a burden isn't enough. Like that's, you know.
It's every day. It's every day, you know. Like, and the flip of it is like I just bought a car, right? And like, let's say you just happen to be on a car lot. And there's a white guy who happens to get to the car lot at the same time. The assumption is you don't have an 800 credit rating, so I'm going to go help the white guy who we can probably get financed, but not you. So there's that too, right? There's keep an eye on you so you don't steal anything, because that's what you people do, is you steal.
Right. And
we're not going to help you because you people have bad credit and you're poor, right? And so it's both sides.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, I mean that's America, and it's not America. It's also England. It's all, you know.
Yeah.
France not so much, but Germany, like everywhere I've been, like it's that. It's that.
Yeah. I mean, so that's part of the article. The other part of the article is which I actually did enjoy was you talking about the differences between a round of golf in one place with some people and a round of golf at another place with other people, right? And the different cultures that are around that. And that kind of started, that's why I wanted to talk to you about your own golf origin story, because it seemed like that was where it kind of was developed.
Yeah. So, and it's not just golf, but I think I make a point of it, like in the story, like there's a JCC in Manhattan on, I think, Jewish Community Center, JCC, but there's one that there's like a lot of good runs, good pickup.
Right.
But it's very different from the good runs and good pickup games you're going to find at the Rucker Park, right? So like golf is like that too. And so my golf origin story is essentially, my dad would play. My dad worked in a. He was a Teamster. He was a union guy. He worked in a warehouse, and he would play on weekends with his friends. And there was, back then courses weren't so against having someone go along. Right
Yeah.
now, nope, we have liability. You can't go watch. You can't go to the cart. You can't be out there unless you're playing.
Yeah.
But I used to kind of go in the back of the cart or sit in the middle of the cart, and I would just be there, right? Like observing, and I wouldn't play, but I was probably like 8, 9, 10 years old. And I would, there was always gambling, and like not a little bit. I've later learned. So like my golf origin story is like, being in the back of a cart, watching my dad and his friends play for, 10, 20 a hole, chain smoking, drinking, swearing,
Right.
gobbling it up. Like, this is great, and so maybe not exactly the introduction you'd think a kid would get. But I'll tell you one thing, it was awfully sincere. I knew everyone was into it. I knew they were competing. I knew it was kind of a treat to be outside. I loved the smells. I love the agronomy. I loved the sounds. I loved, kind of the physics of like, one of the first things that really frustrated me as a kid is I couldn't throw a curveball. But when I got a wiffle ball that had like the balls, like inside, I was like, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah.
I loved how the ball moved, in golf, and spin and like check around the greens just fascinated me.
Yeah.
And those things and that environment and those people were a very comfortable world for me because my dad was there. And so when we would play kind of in the suburbs with his white friends, like it was a little bit different, but there was still action. There was still a lot of like, it was still familiar to me, and it was a gift to grow up in Minneapolis where there was a lot of great golf. It's not quite Chicago, but it's close,
Sure.
And like it's just, and you learn that in life as a child of color, like you're going to go into certain homes and act differently than you are going to act in other homes, right?
Yeah,
you're going to have a very different religious experience at the Baptist church on the north side of Minneapolis than you are at the Mount Olivet Lutheran Church in Southwest Minneapolis. They're very different, but they're both houses of the Lord, right? But they're different interpretations, right? A black congregation is far more invested in Exodus and that story than a Protestant church.
Sure.
Right? So I think when it comes to golf, I think for golfers of color and less for those that have been denied, right? Like there's also this sense of you need to show up too, right? Like if you want to know, like I worked at a Jewish club for years, and I've maybe never felt more comfortable at a job because at a certain level, we were both groups that were denied, right? We were both other. Yeah. So, it's still golf, right? But it's a little bit different culture that's around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you were actually introduced to the part of the game that I've really come to enjoy, which is the social aspect of it. Like you kind of learned that first. Like this is a really fun social thing that you could do with your friends and talk smack and act a fool and the whole thing with your group. And that's kind of how you got sucked into it.
So my dad probably, he's passed, so I'm not too worried about child services coming into play here. But so we would go like meet at some parking lot And then everyone would kind of pile into like one or two cars and we'd drive to like the course they were going to play at or whatever. Right. So
Yeah.
let's say my dad, like one course we played at a lot, and your Minneapolis fans will appreciate this, but they would play at Columbia Heights Golf Course a lot, which is a Minneapolis municipal course. It's not great, but there's, like it's good enough to have a lot of Nassau's and skins going. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
they would play there, and then we would go back to this bar called McNamara's Pub, which I think is still there. So I'd be
Really?
like 10 years old and, like sitting with my dad and like 4 or 5 of his friends. And like, the action wasn't just golf. There would often be like college football
Right.
and
Right.
all kinds of other stuff. But like,
Right.
yeah, like I remember the first time I played golf alone. It was at a par 3 at a course called Rich Acres. And my mom had dropped me off, and like I just walked up to this couple, like, "Hey, I'm Laz, and like, do you guys want to play for like a lemonade or a Snickers or what's it going to be?" And they're like, "Well, we just we're beginners. We're just gonna." And I was like, "What? Like,
Yeah. Right.
you have to play for something?" And they weren't very talkative, and like, by the 6th hole they were cool, but like they were very standoffish. And I think yeah, there's an interesting theory that like golf gives us this canvas to kind of express love in male relationships that we otherwise don't get. We get a lot of chances to kind of compliment people and support them and pick them up when they're down. And that's kind of hard to articulate in everyday life sometimes. And the women I play with are kind of serious, right? And it's less about that.
Yeah.
But the men I play with, like it's interesting that I still see that wanting to let people know you care about them and you enjoy them and you appreciate them, and you reflect that through good shot.
Yeah. That's so true, man. Yeah. That's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great. This was great. I enjoy this immensely.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I do have, so just recently, and I'll let you go after this. So I just wanted to review your top 10 sitcoms, which you're very brave to put out onto Twitter.
Yeah.
And there was some debate around Modern Family, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like that was, you had it, but here's really my bigger sort of, and this isn't necessarily a you thing or anything, but I feel like we need to separate a sitcom from a single camera comedy, because it's almost unfair to measure up. I mean, a single camera, a show like Modern Family, The Office, like those, they can do so much more, I feel like, than
Curb.
Curb is a great example than a sitcom, and sitcoms, think about how hard that must be to write and execute. I mean, you're basically writing a joke every 90 seconds in a sitcom, where I feel like the single camera stuff, you can let it breathe. You can let the story unfold with your eyes. And so I would just like, if you're going to, let's just do a top 10 3 camera and a top 10 1 camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
And separate them, because I think it's unfair for the sitcom to be measured up against these like the Curbs and things like that, where you can do so much more.
And like many rankings that, morph over time, I will say that, by the way, are shows like Family Guy and The Simpsons in play, or what happened to them?
It's a good question, but you can't leave Family Guy and Simpsons off a comedy list. I mean, it is a show.
Yeah.
They put just as much work into it.
Right.
It's written. I mean,
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to go like, and I'll just define this as like Cheers, you knew the bar because it was the bar every time. Right.
Yes. Right.
I got a lot of heat for not having MASH on there, but I fall asleep to MASH more often than not.
Yeah.
And, I got to go fixed. Sorry, 3 cameras. I'm going to go Cheers number 1. For sure. And I'm going to go So, I mean, I'm like a child of the 80s.
Okay.
So, like, my favorites are kind of like Three's Company, The Jeffersons, right? One
Yeah.
Day at a Time, Mel's Diner.
Yeah.
I grew up on those shows, right?
Yeah.
So, Cheers is much better than all of those. I think
That's true.
it's kind of like one, and then everything else is just whatever, right?
Right.
But is Seinfeld that? Because Seinfeld is probably 2 in my book. So I'd say Cheers, Seinfeld, and I know that's super unpopular, but I kind of know. And on the other side of the coin, I'm going to go Curb and The Office, and I'm just going to make sure I put this out there. UK version.
Oh, that's a good call. It's a good way to.
Yeah.
I remember watching, and I do love the American version of The Office. Don't get me wrong.
Great. Yeah.
But yeah, and you can't. I feel bad for the people that watch the American version first. I don't know if you did this and went back and watched the British one, but I feel like it kind of ruins the British one. Like the British one, it kind of sullies, because then they think, oh, they're stealing from the American version. But they wrote the first 2 or 3 episodes, the American version, like word for word from the British version.
Like if our national anthem, we stole that. Three Men and a Baby, we stole that. The Office, we stole that. Every inch of land this country is built on, we stole that. We weren't good at cricket. Let's make baseball.
Let's make up a new version.
Football. We were like, well, let's remember that there were others that came before us, and we were standing on the shoulders of giants.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Now, I don't remember seeing Scrubs on the list. Have you seen any Scrubs episodes?
Yeah, no. Oh man, I left Scrubs off, didn't I?
Yeah, because that's probably that's my number one. I'm just going to say it. That's my number one.
That's a huge miss.
Yeah, I watched last night, so I'm rewatching. I don't know if you listened to their podcast. They started a new, JD and Turk, Zach and Donald started a podcast. It's a rewatch podcast, and it's amazing. So I started rewatching that show for the 10th time probably. And I just hit last night the musical episode, and it may be the greatest single piece of television, from a comedy perspective that I've ever seen. I mean, the musical was just incredible.
Do you think that these shows that are like the streamable shows, like, are they sitcoms, or like, is Ted Lasso a sitcom?
It's a good
question, a series? Laz. Is it a series? Because it's a terrific show.
It is, yeah.
With a hearty soundtrack too. They do a very nice job with the music.
Yeah, that's true.
A beautiful "You Will Never Walk Alone" for the Liverpool fans out there as part of the soundtrack. It's a little heavy on the Mumford and Sons guy, which
it's fair.
Yeah, but no, I don't know what to do about those shows, but like, what's hard is do a top 10 HBO shows series.
Ooh, yeah.
Man,
that's tough.
A lot of people are like, oh, Game of Thrones #1, but then you look at what's out there and you're like, maybe not.
I don't know, man. I think about 6 Feet Under. I really love that show. And
do you know what's crazy about that show is probably a top 10 Arcade Fire song.
True.
It's called Cold Wind.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I've ever found it anywhere except on the 6 Feet Under soundtrack.
That's right. That's a great point. I didn't realize that, but you're right.
I think they've played it live like 6 times, right? Like,
yeah.
And it's beautiful. So
it's true.
The power of HBO is not to be trifled with. They even put Arcade Fire in their place.
That's right. They just took their song, so it's ours now. Yeah. All right, man. We're good. That's great. This is so much fun. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. And go and follow Laz. Go read everything he's written, and it's always great. So
it won't take long. Thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure, man.